Well, there are indications that a malign actor has compromised the armed forces.
Cow cuddling, thanks to social media, has become all the rage. Visitors pay farmers to snuggle a half-ton heifer.
Ladies and gents, it's time for the midweek solo show. Of course it is. Of course it is. Welcome to episode 275, guys. 275 here as I record this, which means we are only 25 away from the big 300, aren't we? Almost at 300 episodes. Can you imagine that? 300 of Aid Thompson and other disappointments. It's quite exciting, isn't it? 300. I wonder what my other half would have said if the first time I told her I was nipping out to the shed to do a quick podcast, if she'd known that I was going to be out here 2 nights a week on my own in the shed getting smashed, ranting into the ether like some sort of unmedicated lunatic screaming at traffic. I wonder what she would have said. What would she have thought if she had known that that was the start of it? That's where it was going to end up, you know? What sort of panic bargaining do you think would have taken place had she known? Like, yeah, I'm just going to nip out into the shed for half an hour. Yeah, you okay with the kids? Yeah. Yeah, or you could have a blowjob, Aid. You know, I'm not totally jazzed about the idea of pulling your boxers down and seeing your penis for the 1000th time, but I would probably rather do that than set this train in motion. And then, what might never have been. Dear listeners, what's going on? Anyway, here we are, guys. It's episode 275. Let's get into it. It's time to, once again, pull up your bar stool. Dear listeners, dear viewers, slump yourself over the imaginary bar of this fun house that is Binfluencer HQ here, and listen carefully as I once more share my stories, thoughts and feelings about what used to pass for the United Kingdom and indeed the wider world. What's up to the Patreons, by the way, you know, before we really jump into it? What's up to the Patreons? Got their names up on the screen right now. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see all of them. God, they're beautiful, aren't they? My beautiful Binfluencer crew. Right, so what are we going to talk about tonight, guys? What is going on out there? So, here is a story, people, that I found on Sky News. Now, it's not the breaking news item, you know, that's up the top if, you know, a teenager goes missing or, you know, a big bank is about to default. It's not one of those. It's not the top story that's dominating anybody's bulletins, really, at the moment. It's astonishingly buried in the depths of their updates. I can't quite believe how far down the list of news updates it is. If this was a newspaper, this story should have been on the front pages of all of Fleet Street, in my opinion. I'm not kidding. Forget your Israel-Hamas stuff. Forget the Met Gala, all of that. I don't know if you saw all of the outfits that the Met Gala is insane. I'm not talking about the Met Gala tonight. I'm just not. But forget about Israel Hamas. Forget about the Met Gala. It is all eyes on this story, guys. Bird flu outbreak could threaten US cow cuddling craze. Oh, yeah. A bird flu outbreak could threaten the US's cow cuddling craze. Now, frequent and fervent viewers will attest that I have a well-documented bemusement, nay disdain, for our habitual imports of American crazes over here in Blighty, from our terrible remakes of their TV shows, to their anti-vax movement, to our recent obsession with voter fraud, and so on. But please, I'm begging you, please, can we import something else from America? Guys, I'm desperate here, really. Please, can we import something fun from America? Can we import Quaaludes and Yoo-hoo milkshakes before we start with the cow cuddling craze? Please! Like, why does every American craze that we bring into Britain have to be a shit one? Why can't we import Mila Kunis, you know, and a few of their bank holidays, maybe? How about that? Why does every American import have to be terrible? So, bird flu outbreak could threaten US cow cuddling craze. From Sky News. It says an hour-long session of hugs could pay for a bale of hay. But officials are warning against the practice after an outbreak among dairy herds in 9 US states. Dear listeners. So an hour's session of hugs with a cow is valuable enough on the open market to pay for a hay thing for the herd. That's what they're telling me. So it's a growth market. Apparently, you know, it's innovative. It's you know, they're charging people money for an hour of hugging a cow. That's what this story, like, the thing is amazing. So firstly, is this even really happening? I mean, is this actually, is it a craze? Is it actually taking place in multiple locations across America? Like the Ice Bucket Challenge. Are people filming themselves on TikTok and upload? It's a craze, guys. So is it actually happening? That's the first thing. The second thing is like how is the fact that people are like cuddling cows? That's not even the news story. Like, it's the fact there's like bird flu. Bird flu happens to be hampering people's thing about cuddling cows. That's the news. Oh, there's poor people. Oh no, yeah. Oh well, I'm glad you told me about it. Yeah, that sounds important. Yeah. But yeah, man, is this even happening? Is what I'm wondering. Like, people are going to American farms, are they, and paying money to hard up, stressed out American farmers? Is that what's happening? This is the growth market? This is the craze? You get, like, people from New York coming down to a southern state farm, like, yeah, all right, I'm having a real bad week up in New York, up in Jersey. And you look like you're having a tough time of it down here in the agricultural sector, and we sure are, mister. Well, how about I pay you $200 for an hour with Daisy over there? Like, that is what's happening here, isn't it? That is what's actually happening. I mean, we say it's cow cuddling, right? But what is this really? What is actually happening here, in essence? Is American farmers are hard up, okay? They're stressed out, financial pressures, climate change, they can't grow enough crops. They're under financial pressures, and they're being forced to diversify their product portfolio. And where are they ending up to make that money back? They're escorting out their stock. Like, that is what's happening. Like, you say you're reporting the news, Sky News, don't you? But I don't think you're doing yourself any favours here with the Pulitzer panels by sugarcoating this. American farmers are whoring their cows out. That is the story, people. And you know what? I know I was talking a lot of rubbish about, like Britain importing stuff from America and we do it worse. I often talk about, the shit British versions of things. But one thing I am actually proud of with regards to being British, right? I mean, it's a shrinking stock in that respect, week by week, month by month. But one thing, like, this does make me proud to be British in a weird way. Like, let me explain. Like, the reason that this makes me proud to be British is because, right, over in America, with their, outwardly shown emotions, and their polite manners, and their, you go and see a scene in an American small-town bar. Yeah, we've got a new barrel just out the back. I'll go get her. It's that sort of cheese shucks, polite manners stuff. And their customer is always right. Perfect service. And they're, good morning, ma'am. Like tipping the hat. All of their social decency over there. They're like all of it. Their manners, their service, their social decency, their yes ma'am, like all of that. And then on top of all of that, you've got this. You've got something as disgustingly sweet as paying money to hug their stupid cows. Like, you couldn't get more American than that, could you? Some city slicker, East Coaster sauntering into a farm shop and paying dollars to a plaid shirt, tobacco chewing hick so you can cuddle a cow? You got all of that, and that's America. That's the rest of the world, right? And then what do we have over here? What do we have in Britain? Do we go into farm shops and pay money to go and cuddle cows? Do we? No. Nobody's paying money to go and cuddle. What do we have? We have drunk teenagers who break into farms and then cow tip. We push them over. You couldn't pray for a clearer illustration of the differences in our cultures, could you? Makes me proud to be British, guys. And you know what it reminds me of, right? Do you know what it reminds me of? It makes me think back to, some of you might remember this, and others you might be too young to, I don't know. But about 20 years ago, there was a documentary that was shown on Channel 4. And it was where, I don't remember who it was now, but like someone went to the southern states of the United States. I don't think it was Louis Theroux, but it was that sort of vibe. It was like a fish out of water, a British fish out of water, and send them to Alabama or, whatever. And I know I take the piss out of Tories for fucking livestock, right? That whole meme. Hashtag Tories fuck livestock, guys. But these guys on this documentary, and women, by the way, were literally having sex with animals. Like, that was the documentary. Was like, which is fair enough. Guys, I mean, for all of the thousands of British comedian does a travel show efforts that there are out there, where you get, like a Mickey Flanagan going across Italy, or, Jack Whitehall and his dad travel across Texas or something, Michael Palin does it. Billy Connolly did a few of them. I mean, like, you can't argue that at least this one did have a new twist on it. A British comedian goes to the southern states and meets animal fuckers. I mean, it's like quite... I would have loved to have seen the pitch. I really would have. You know, you get some sort of, you know, line producery, agenty kind of guy. He'd be like, okay, so what we thought we'd do is we'd take a comedian, right? And we'd put them in a car and they can drive around America, taking in the culture, riffing on the things that they're seeing. And the producer would be like, oh, again, really? A comedian going, traveling, you follow him? Oh, great. Yeah, this is worse than the 1,000th time Stephen King pitched a novel about a writer. Oh, it's a novel, is it, Stephen? Oh, okay. It's a suspense. Is it? Okay. Oh, it sounds really interesting. Yeah. And what the main protagonist is a what? Oh, he's a writer again. Is he still? Oh, it's incredible stuff. What an imagination you have, Mr. King. They go back, no, you didn't understand. You didn't understand. We'll go round the southern states, the south. But the people that we will meet, that the comedian will meet, they will be self-confessed dog fuckers. The producer would be like, Jesus Christ. Yes, fine, greenlit. This is essential documentary making. These are stories that need to be told. And anyway, look, I'll just say this. Like, I don't remember who the presenter was. Just for some reason in my head, it was one of these, you know, comedian going traveling vibes. But yeah, they went and they talked to this woman who was fucking a dog, which was weird. And then they went and spoke to this guy, and he was like banging ponies and mares. And I remember they asked him on the documentary, they were just like, so how did this whole thing start? And he was quite open about it. He was like, well, I remember when I was younger, and I went out and I asked this girl out for a date, for dinner and a movie, and then she said no, and her friends was all like laughing at me and stuff. And then I got home and I looked at my pony, and I looked at my pony. I thought about it, and I thought, yeah, mare pussy, human pussy, mare pussy, human pussy. It's the same. And then the second that I emptied my balls into that there pony, well, I just felt like I was getting one up on every girl who would ever turn me down. I remember talking to my friend Chuck about this, and he heard that line, and he was like, oh yeah, I'm sure they all feel really silly now. I turned down sex with the donkey fucker. Anyway, so yeah, hugging cows is a thing now over there, or at least it was, until this bird flu thing took flight. Way! So to speak. Which, I don't even know if I believe that, you know? That the bird flu, you know, was the thing that's... Like, if I was a cow, right? Just put yourself in the cow's shoes. Or, you know, did cows... I was about to say horseshoes, like cows wear horse... I don't know what how... Do cows wear shoes? Or... That should be... If this was a live stream, that would be tonight's question. So thank you, Lucky Stars, that it is not. But if I was a cow, if I was in a cow's shoes, and my farmer pimp started whoring me out, which is obviously what is happening here. My farmer pimp starts whoring me out, going like, times are tough, Daisy. You go on with a nice man. You be real friendly to him, Daisy. We got bills to pay, you hear? If that was my farmer pimp ushering me off into a red light room, if I was that cow, I don't know, man. I'd probably be a little bit like, I can't. I'd love to. I'm sorry about the bills and everything, Hank, but I can't. I've got that bird flu. You know, Y'all don't want none of this, you know. And then Hank or Buck or whoever, you know, the paying gentleman, the John is, he'll be like, no, I do not want none of that. I don't want none of that bird flu cow. Hank, I thought you told me that these cows was clean. Get me coming over here with my best brute on. You giving me dirty cows. Anyway, I suppose we should talk about what's actually happening in politics, shouldn't we? I know there's people who's followed me, like, over the last, like, what, 3 or 4 days? Like, I wrote a couple of threads over the weekend on Twitter, and loads of people jumped on them. I got loads of, like, new followers on Twitter, and some of them will have jumped across here onto YouTube, and they'll be expecting some sort of, you know, political, maybe satirical, observations of modern party politics and bashing Sunak and maybe even talking about Trump. And then they've come on here and I'm talking about literally livestock fucking, which is, you know, normally I crack a few jokes, as I say, about the Tories and my perceived, or their perceived pet. Oh, I can't fucking talk tonight, guys. But no, tonight I'm literally talking about livestock fuckers. So there we go. Right, what is happening in politics? What was the big story today, guys? The big story this morning when I woke up was that China have reportedly cyber-attacked the UK again. I don't know if you guys saw this. First thing this morning. This is from the Daily Mail or the Mail Online. It says, China hacks bank details of 250,000 British MOD workers. Woohoo! Beijing blamed as soldiers, veterans and officials are all targeted in a huge data breach, just as President Xi is wined and dined by Macron on a Paris visit. So yeah, it's the Ministry of Defence, led by Grant Michael Green Shapps, hacked by China. They said an MOD payroll system was hacked by the Chinese state with names and bank details of current armed forces, personnel, and some veterans exposed. I mean, here is the funny thing about this, right? If you need a joke to help, you know, I don't know, treat the palate, please the palate to help this go down. The funny thing is about this, right, is that they attacked a third-party payroll system, supplier, contractor, right? So this is going to end up being another, like, Fujitsu or, what's the other one, Capco, are they called? And then Securicor, and, you know, it's going to be, like, it'll be a government contractor who've been given the task of running the UK's armed force, like, payroll services, right? That's what we're talking about here. It'll be a government contractor, and it'll be somebody who's undercut the original, like, publicly funded operation. Because these things, they don't start out as privatized companies. They're institutions. They are, you know, it's the army. And then it's an offshoot of the army. And then they need a new department. They spin that up. And then eventually somebody up in Whitehall goes, oh, we should outsource that. We should chop it up. We should privatize it. We should contract it out to this company. So it's going to be somebody that has come in and tendered and undercut the original cost of running that process. And then not only do they have to, like, undercut the cost that it was originally running at, but the government put it out to tender. So you'll have, like, Capco and Fujitsu and Securicor, all of these companies, like, bidding at tender to try to undercut each other so the cost of it comes down and down. Because the whole idea, like, the ideology behind it is that, you know, competition gives a better deal to the taxpayer, right? But is it a better deal when 4 or 5 of these companies, who aren't really held to account because the government need to give these contracts out, and there's only 3 or 4 of them, so it just goes round in a circle. If one of them messes up, they just hand it over to the next one. It's like the train lines. Like, First Great Western do a terrible job of running a train line, and then what, like 10 years later, they put it out to tender. They just hand it to Virgin. Meanwhile, Virgin have taken another thing off of the thing. Like, it's just a big switcheroo, right? So, is it a better deal for the taxpayer? Probably not. It's just a load of people cost-cutting, and then they've got to actually find a way of running that service when after they've cut the costs, which means they have to cut corners and make cuts and do things with fewer staff and put logistic sites further away, which creates more challenges. Like, what do you mean you've moved site AB12 up to Coventry? It used to be in Buckinghamshire, near the army base. Why is it in Coventry? Oh, well, it was cheaper to rent a warehouse up there. Right, but now we've got to run the lorries back and forth there 3 times a week. Right, I know, but it was cheaper. It looked better on the P&L report, like on the balance sheet at the end of every... Oh, my God. We seriously have to drive to Coventry and back? 3... Yeah. How long is that contract for with the warehouse? 17 years. Fuck! So there's stuff like that. It's like, it's going to be more efficient if we put it out to tender. But then the companies that get the tender have to make the cuts that then make them inefficient, is the point that I'm very, long-windedly trying to get to here. Or it turns out, of course, like, Thames Water, they can't afford to run the service at the level that they've pitched and won or maintained the bid at, and then they go way into the red, but continue to funnel out billions of dollars in, shareholder dividends and stuff, and then we all have to bail them out. So either which way, it always seems to fail. But anyway, now, right, so where are we? Assuming that this is what has happened, right? Government contractor, win the tender, win the bid, make the cuts, land us in a significantly less secure situation, where members of the actual armed forces are left wondering if their banks and incomes, their livelihoods, are secure. That's where we are, right? So the Tories have made the country less secure. Conservative ideology has made the armed forces and thus the country less secure. And you wonder why I want them recategorized as a terror group. They are a threat to national security. And here's where it actually gets, funnier, right? I know I said I was going to give you something, to help it go down. Here's the thing that amused me, right? So, all of the hysteria around TikTok, okay? Think of all the hyperbole, the frothing, the panic and the fear that a Chinese company might gain access to your data, right? Just think back to all of that. All of the little news clips from congressmen and senators, American right-wing journalists talking about TikTok as a threat to national security. We gotta ban it. What about your data? All that stuff, right? All of the fear that a Chinese company might gain access to your data. Like, oh, Lord, we can't have a Chinese app drinking in your data. Whatever would we feed the American ones? They'll starve. The possibility of a Chinese app jeopardizing your data is enough for Congress and possibly the UK. Probably the UK government at some point will end up banning it. But a Fujitsu app, not a Chinese one, a Fujitsu app or a Serco app or whoever this government contractor ends up being, that app ostensibly handing 250,000 people's banking data directly to China. And not only will they not even be banned, they'll be given another contract once this ship blows over. It's incredible, isn't it? It's like, they left a back door in the software and it allowed Beijing to download everything. Well, was there any twerking or lip syncing in the software? No. Well, then why are you even telling me about it? Like, it feels that ridiculous. So there's that angle to this. But then there is also, in a lot of the coverage this morning, and certainly in the number 10 reaction to this story, there is also the whole British values nonsense. I don't know if you guys caught any of that. It's pretty ridiculous, really. Like, I don't know how do these people hear themselves? I mean, like, just quickly before we get on back to the like British values ridiculousness. Like this was a favourite bit of mine. Was where he dropped this quote. He goes, "I set out a very robust policy towards China." Did you, Rish? Did you really? A robust policy? Are you protecting us? Are you? Is that what's happening? I set out a robust policy towards China. You couldn't even protect your own car. Did your robust policy include a car lock or a car alarm? They broke into your car and put bugs all over it. So says Ian Duncan Smith. I set out a very robust policy towards China. No, you didn't, you tap dancing tosser. What are you on about? They are a country with fundamentally different values to ours, that are acting in a way that is more authoritarian and assertive abroad. I mean, that's the thing that really sticks in my craw. They are a country with fundamentally different values to ours, said the Prime Minister in response to this attack. Now, the Tories have done such a ferociously bad job of running the country now for their own ends for so long that they've rendered themselves ridiculous on the world stage now with stuff like this, you know? Like, how can you go out into the geopolitical town square and say China have fundamentally different values to our own when your party, have done everything you can to shit all over everything that used to be known as core British values? Do you know what I mean? Like giving people a good shake of things. No, there's a lot of corruption now. Or being, broadly speaking, upfront and honest. Absolutely not. No, you guys lie. What was it, the quote by Chris Rock? He's talking about men. He's like, men lie so much, it's basically a language, right? That's the same with Tories. Every other day, there is some insulting, deeply wounding lie where it's just like, oh, come on. How about working with our neighbours, our allies and neighbours? That used to be a sort of core British value, didn't it? As an architect of the European project of the ECHR. How about respecting democracy? Do we do that anymore? Have they trashed that one? Like once you've trashed the Electoral Commission, you've neutered it. Once you've prorogued Parliament, once you've said the jury's out on France being a friend or a foe, and your party have taken money from Putin's former finance minister while he's upending your own democracy, China have fundamentally different values to our own. I mean, what values are they? Which ones are left, Rish? Respecting the monarchy that you've lied to? Or defending the democracy that you willfully, periodically contort? Protecting the freedoms that they are constantly trying to take away from us? China have. They've just got fundamentally different values, though. Oh, really? Okay. Are you sure about that? Are you? Because, I mean, we are about a general election and a Suella Braverman premiership away from seeing people's rights to annual leave and a fair trial being demolished, basically. And still these people are like, oh, I hate it when people act all authoritarian. Well, do you? Do you really? Are you sure? Because it feels like you and China might actually get on. I mean, if things carry on the way that they are, let's say the Conservatives won this next election. If things carried on at the velocity that they've been on, with the British slide towards authoritarianism, we're going to end up in a really weird place in about a year or 2 years' time, aren't we? We're going to end up in a very strange place where there would be no ECHR, presumably by that point. There'd be no human rights, or certainly no guarantee of them. There'd be no protest, probably a very restricted, hampered free press. Anyone that speaks out against the government gets shot in the head in front of their kids in a town square. And then the government, right, knowing all of this, the government will end up going on TV and still say, like, honestly, you should stick with us. You should vote for us. Vote Tories, because we are the only ones who can protect you from the evil values of China. You better watch out for China. Oh, you don't want any of their authoritarian nonsense. But also, don't speak out against us, or I will have you jailed for 14 years for embarrassing the government. I mean, I'm not even kidding about this. Like, people forget the horrendous stuff that the Tories have discussed or tabled or signed off. Or like, look at this, mate. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see this Mail Online article from 2 or 3 years ago when Priti Patel was still Home Secretary. And they were floating this idea of, look, journalists could face up to 14 years in prison for stories embarrassing the government under proposed changes to the Official Secrets Act that would treat them like foreign spies, jailing journalists as though they are spies for nothing more than embarrassing the government. Sounds a bit like China, doesn't it? I mean, I suppose the funny thing about it is that, and there's a sort of irony to this, isn't there, that half the lot that are so keen to put in fascist authoritarian measures in place, you know, your Boris Johnsons, your Priti Patels, your Suella Bravermans, those guys, they are pro-authoritarian, but they're also the flag-fucking Tories as well, aren't they? And they're the ones who hate multiculturalism. It's always the same. Well, I don't think multiculturalism was an experiment, but it has not worked. They don't like multiculturalism. But, in a weird way, sharing all of the dictatory, surveillance, anti-democracy shit would mean that we are sort of sharing each other's cultures into one big, homogenized, sanitized world of beige dictatory stuff. Do you know what I mean? Am I making sense? Probably not. I mean, I guess the point that we're getting at here is that eventually we're going to come to a point. I've talked about this before, where it's like there was an assessment or a study done a few years ago where it was like, look, the big superpowers of the next century will be China and India, and maybe there was one other. And it said, like, basically for America to compete with China, America will have to become China. And what they meant by that was they're going to have to trash their employment rights. They're going to have to work people to the bone the same way that China do in order to compete, to complete and create enough products and commercialism and capitalism and so on and so on. America will have to become China to compete with China. And in a way, you know, to force people to do that, you have to be authoritarian and dictatorial. Which means we are going to get to a point in the US and in the UK where we're like, you know, do I live in China or do I live in Britain? You know, which one is worse? I don't really. It's very much choose your abuser sort of territory, isn't it? I mean, they're basically the same, like that. It's like you know, like mare pussy, human pussy, mare pussy, human pussy. It's basically all right. That's enough now. Guys, that's it. I'm gonna have to run. Thank you so much for continuing to check in on these podcast episodes. I do 2 a week, one midweek, like Tuesday or Wednesday, which always goes out to Patreons and YouTube community backers first. Then 2 days later, it re-emerges in final form out to regular YouTube, but also Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Friday night, I was about to say I usually have a guest on. I haven't had a guest for weeks, and I've had a great time. I mean, in some ways, it's a crescendo. It's the natural progression of a guy, or for a guy, who has gradually retreated from his social life, where I used to have a lot of friends. I used to have like 3 or 4 different circles of mates, of like, you know, my comedian crew, and then my hometown mates that I used to hang out with, and then the people that I'd met in London, and then some ex-colleagues that I used to hang out with still quite a lot. I used to have and gradually through fatherhood and the housing crisis pushing us further and further out of London, mostly parenthood, I've retreated. And now I just don't. Now I just come out here and I, talk to you guys, and we've built a little community through the content. But I did used to have a guest on, like every Friday night. People like Marina Perkis, people like Femi, Super Tansky, Gemma Forte, to name but a few. And the last few weeks, I'll tell you what it is. Maybe this isn't interesting to politics fans, but just people who are, perhaps more invested in the podcast. The last few weeks, I've been, sitting with my son, and he's been telling me about his favourite YouTubers, and he's been showing me their live streams, and I've got really interested in it. I'm like, oh yeah, that would be good. Or maybe I should have a live chat, and maybe I could do this, and like super chats, and a question for the stream to keep people engaged and build up a conversation with your community and the content. Anyway, so I guess the point that I'm getting at is that I've really enjoyed the live streams over the last month or so. So I don't know. I'm going to put the feelers out and see if there's some guests that want to come on. But it's not the end of the world if I can't find some people to jump on a Friday night. I'm having a good time with everyone that checks in. I should mention also, if you are at a loose end on a Friday night, the Friday night live show with the live stream and the live chat, that is open to everyone. So if you want to get it like while it's topical and you're not on the Patreon, you're not on the YouTube community thing, you could just jump on that at 7:30 every Friday, live on YouTube. I'm there, the Patreons, the backers, everyone's there. Live chat. We had about 250 people tune in last week, and most weeks over the last few weeks, there's been about 200 odd people. So yeah, join us for a beer every Friday night, 7:30. But that's it for now. I've got to go. Take care of yourselves. Keep it booge. Keep it Bimfluencer. And I am out this motherfucker.